Okay, give me a second. And yeah, I know everyone been hearing the toot 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 in terms of that. So yeah, let me just double check the stream to see we are live. Give me yeah some. Recently, Facebook has this issue that I can't find the proper stream. Like they keep. Oh my god. Okay, I'm having issue with this. So I cannot. Okay, hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Daniel Cervantes with Next Up Asia. Today we have Johnathan Lee. Well, you probably would have known him throughout the years if you're in the Malaysia entrepreneur ecosystem. Previously from Cradle, then with Magic, and now, Jonathan, you are now with this organization called Rise. So, welcome on the show. And what's Rise, and what's your role in Rise?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me, Daniel. Well, Rise, when I mention Rise, a lot of people confuse Rise with two other things. One is the Rise Bowl Award,
Mhm.
which is an entrepreneurship award, and the other one is, of course, the Rise Conference out of Hong Kong. So we are not affiliated to either of these two events-based organization. Rise is really a Thailand headquartered corporate innovation firm. We actually work with corporate clients to help them innovate faster. We also work with government, but predominantly we work with corporate clients to
Mhm.
help these guys innovate faster. We do have our own event, which is called the Corporate Innovation Summit. It's the largest experiential corporate event in the region. Last year in 2019, we had more than 4,000 corporate executives attending the event. But our bread and butter is really corporate innovation. We provide a lot of these services in terms of advisory as well as programs, training programs, accelerator programs to our clients.
Yeah. And
As
how?
for me,
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, yeah, just as for me, I am one of their new hires. So Rise is predominantly based in Thailand, and that's their original market. But recently, Rise has raised $8 million seed round to do a regional expansion. So they are now expanding into key markets in the region. Malaysia and Singapore being the nearest are the first two markets. So I am the country head for Malaysia.
Well, congratulations on your new role. And how long have you
Thank you.
been actually with Rice?
Since February, so just right after Chinese New Year. So my tenure at Magic ended in December last year. So I decided to take a bit of break and just enjoy, life a little bit and enjoy Chinese New Year with my family. Then post that, I joined Rise.
So the one of the things that we when we were talking off screen, you mentioned that it was actually very interesting that you feel like Rice and Magic are very similar, but just taking a very different approach in terms of how we look at innovation. So, care to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I mean, innovation is a very important process, and I think all organizations, big and small, should have some form of innovation being done in their organization. When I spoke to you earlier, when I first learned about Rice, I thought Rice was a fantastic private sector initiative, and there was a lot of similarities between what Rice offered and what Magic offered. Now, the only key difference is Magic's main stakeholders are the startup and entrepreneurs at a very early stage.
Mhm.
And Magic tries to bridge these startups to corporate clients or corporate partners of theirs through various activities like the corporate procurement, corporate initiatives like venture building, and so on and so forth. Where Rise is concerned, the stakeholder is actually the corporates themselves. So our paying clients are the corporates. What we do is we help this corporate address their innovation problems, their company and organization challenges by finding the best solution for them, which includes getting access to tech companies and startups from around the world. So if you look at it, it's really two sides of the same coin. One is really startup centric, one is more corporate centric.
In terms of when we look at corporate innovation, like what are the key misconception when people are looking at corporate innovation? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs here would want to find a way to work with like some of this big corporation and so forth.
Well, I mean, if you want to work with the big corporates, and it's not a secret even, right? I mean, at the end of the day, any markets that you want to cater to, you must give the customers what they need, not exactly what they want, but what they need, right? And even though it's easy to say, we usually don't know what they want. Even the customers sometimes don't know what they need. So we do a lot of exploration, problem defining, needs analysis with our clients in order to find out exactly what the problem is, and then we will build the solution or the strategy to address this solution. Now, a lot of it has to do with time and resources, not necessarily money. You need to actually take time to go and talk to these people, which is part of lean startup methodology. If you have ever read lean startup methodology, one of the things is they ask you to get out of the office, go and talk to potential clients, right? And this
Yeah.
is what you need to do. And I find a lot of organizations, both the guys that we cater to and also the startup that we work with, don't spend enough time doing this, and they don't spend enough time testing. They don't run experiments, right? If you don't run experiment, you will never know whether your solution is a hit or miss
Mhm.
when trying to address this issue. So what we do encourage is a lot of organizations that we work with, when we are working with them either on solutions or strategies, we also help them run certain experiments to ensure that some of these solutions can meet their needs. And of course, if you are a big organization, we encourage you to do more experimentation. It's a numbers game, right? If you've ever listened to Alex Osterwalder or any of the top innovation gurus speak, right? They will tell you that most of their clients, the large corporate clients, when they run, say, experiments, they run maybe 250 to 1,000 experiments,
Wow.
and of the bets, 60 to 70% of those are useless. They it just won't do anything, won't solve any problem or what. But you still need to do those amount of testing. And then out of the 20 to 30%, you may get the remainder 10% that have some traction. And
Mhm.
then out of that, maybe a handful that will be really good. Good ones that can actually give you multiple returns of, say, 50x or more, right? So between one to five, good ideas will become some of this. But you need those kind of testing. So one of the things that when I listen to all these innovation guru talk about these numbers, I always ask them, can it be replicated for startups? If so, what sort of numbers are we looking at? So they say, yeah, because the methodology is the same, right? Is you're not running 250 experiments now. You're actually running maybe 5 to 10,
Yeah.
right? But the 5 to 10 is in a way to try to get you to one really good idea that can help you maybe not look at even 50x, but look at maybe 5x
Mhm.
5x return on your effort, and those are things that are really achievable, very affordable. You don't really have to spend a ton of money and resources on it. And but as you test, as the other iterations of ideas falls through, the ones that go to the next stage, you spend a little bit, you double down on it, you spend a bit more effort, a bit more time, a bit more resources on it, and eventually one of it will reach the top, and that's what you bet on.
So when we look at companies that actually been disrupting themselves and actually challenging their own business model, like do you see
Mm.
a lot of it happening around this region now, at least in terms of the companies you work with in Rice, especially over this time because this is a whole, again to quote Go, this is a product market failure period.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
everyone, your business would not work, and do you see a lot of investment in corporate innovation because it's innovate or die?
Well, it depends on the leadership, right? So we talked about this earlier. Some of our clients who have been with us 2 3 years, they continue to invest in innovation. The newer clients, especially those who have not had a very strong culture of innovation, they don't view innovation as a necessity. They view it as a luxury. So in this period where it's very difficult, They rely upon either their business continuity plan or their disaster management plan, which is solely to protect operations. You cut off everything, you trim the fat, you take away all the things that are not necessary, you focus on the operational survival of the company. Well, innovation is very different, right? So we look at innovation as a vehicle that could potentially help business survival, not just operational survival. And it has to do with the mindset and the culture of the organization. And when you talk about mindset, there's no secret recipe, there's no magic bullet. But we can give you a lot of example of companies that are doing it. I mean, Google has an internal team that try to hack into their system on a daily basis, right?
Okay.
Because if they can hack into the system, they know how to protect it. A company like Ping An, for example, the world's largest insurance company, I mean, they started as a fintech banking finance organization that decided to go beyond just the financial industry. So they decided to have a co-CEO that looks at creating new ventures and new business
Mm-hmm.
for Ping An. Now Ping An is so highly diversified. They have a huge tech company. They have a movie production, I think, movie investment and production company. They have classifieds for homes. They have classified for cars. They are in the healthcare side. So they're highly diversified, and you need the right leadership mindset for this. If your leaders are very highly conventional and only use what's tried and tested, then I think there will be a challenge for innovation in the organization. So a lot of times when we talk about, and you look at any of those innovation tools, whether it's business model canvas or whether it's design thinking, is tools to really change mindset. So design thinking talks about empathy, and if you are more empathetic, it can help you change your mindset of the ways of looking at things. So we apply a lot of those tools in our programs to help our clients
Yeah.
address some of the challenges that they have.
Yeah, it's actually in terms of when we are looking at like leadership plays a very important role in adopting corporate innovation. Like, what are the things that as a leader, as a lot of the entrepreneurs are, how would they want to try to challenge that? Like, they don't have the resources like Ping An, or they don't have the resources like Google. What would you suggest? Like, how would they be more empathetical? Like, I think that's something that you mentioned, but how do they actually embrace innovation more in their culture?
Wow, I mean that's such a fantastic question. I don't even know how to even address something like that. I think, like I said, there's no magic bullet.
Mm.
Ideally, if we can spend a bit of time, talking to them and explaining and giving them facts, these are, so we are not saying that. So a lot of people talk about innovation, right? But you can actually find very real facts in terms of the results of people who have invested in innovation. Yes, there will be some outliers there, and yes, there will be, certain percentage of investment into innovation that have failed. That those are very real numbers. But if you look at a majority of guys who continue to innovate, the likelihood of them surviving or becoming successful is slightly higher, right? So I usually would use, basically, when I present to either the C-suite guys or the board of directors, I would actually spend a lot of time giving them data that they themselves can consume
Yeah.
and make sense of, rather than just going in and say, hey, look, innovation is the cure all for everything. It's not. It's not a solve all solution. You need different innovation tools for different type of problems. Design thinking can't solve everything, just like business model canvas can't solve everything, right? So you pick the right type of innovation tools for your organization to solve specific type of problems. Now, how do you know what innovation tools to pick? It's a matter of training, right? I can tell you today that even for me, I don't know all the innovation tools that are available out there. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. So on a constant basis, at Rise, we have also have a culture of learning. So
Mm.
we will go and learn from other practitioners, we learn from other management and innovation gurus, and we take what is pertinent to us and we craft our own material. And then we help our clients in that way.
What are the, like, ever since you joined Rise? Just curious, like, what are some of the
Mm.
innovation tools that you have come across that you didn't know exist?
Okay. There suddenly is an increase in Canvas tools for to address COVID-19. I'm going to do a bit of a plug-in because we also just launched at Rise, we launched our own innovation continuity canvas. Now,
Mhm.
it started off as an innovation continuity plan because we saw the business continuity plan, as I mentioned,
Yeah.
a lot of company was adopting it. And when we study the business continuity plan, it doesn't put a lot of emphasis on innovation. It talks about what's necessity and how do you keep that rolling to ensure operational survival, right? And everything else is basically secondary. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. So the innovation continuity plan was something that we started working on. Then we realized that it's easier if we have a canvas where people can actually go through and make sense of how they can continually innovate to address some of the key challenges in this very difficult situation of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the one that you are actually on is the first article that we shared. So this is really our beta version.
Mhm.
Throughout the last couple of weeks, we've also refined it. In fact, there's actually a new, we just published a new article for with a lot more clarifications on how you will go in and fill the individual blocks within the canvas as well.
Well,
Yeah,
I
if you
don't
can.
think is this one? No, I don't think so.
No, no,
But no,
it's not here yet, but I can share on the link later with everyone, and then you guys can go in and check it out. Now, without going too much, I mean, we can spend a lot of time on the ICC, but
mm,
really the ICC's goal is basically to one kind of open up the mindset. We're not trying to set the mindset. We are encouraging the leaders who are using this canvas to kind of think broadly, right? Not to be
yeah,
confined to what was done previously and what worked previously. And secondly, only focus on also again, this is principles that we took from BCP, right? Only
yeah,
focus on core necessities. So our mission critical is basically what you need to have or not have in order for your business to survive. So
I
when
see.
we show this to some of our clients, they say, "Oh, look, we're generating 5 million revenue per
Mhm.
annum, right? And we want to continue to do that." So I tell them that the reality is you will never hit the 5 million in this kind of situation. But better you tell me what is your cost of operations, and then when we narrow it down, we kind of find out that it was almost about 100 to 200,000 dollars per month.
Mm.
Uh, and then I said, in order for you to survive, this is the numbers you need to continuously make per month, to cover your payroll, to cover your marketing, to pay your utilities, your rental, whatever. Those are your costs that you need to to cover. And you no longer can this particular company is they no longer can actually they are retail bills, they no longer can sell the products. So they have to actually shift a lot of their stuff on a digital platform. And to be honest, a lot of this stuff when we were working on it, we realized that other companies were also working on it, but they didn't use a canvas. But they had the same mindset and the same thought process.
Mm.
So we try to capture that and put it in the canvas. Again, the ICT canvas is not a cure-all. We don't tell people that, hey, you use this, you're going to survive the pandemic. What we say is, you use this, then you have a better chance of continuous innovation, even though the current situation is difficult. Uh, I mean, I'm also going to plug in for a few startups. Like for example, we are part of the startup ecosystem, and when the whole MCO happened, one of the entrepreneur Wai Hong, who is from Store Hub,
Yeah.
within like 2 days, he set up a solution that could help business.
Hours.
deliver food. Yeah. So I thought that was fantastic. And when I was reading it into it a little bit more, I realized that he also had similar thought process that we was going through. And now I'm starting to see more companies, even large companies like MyEG, for example, announced that they were going to do delivery service, right?
Yeah.
And also plug in for MyEG. I'm ex MyEG as well.
Oh yeah.
I was
Of course,
head
I
of
forgot.
BD there at one point. And MyEG has these resources, so they have a lot of delivery guys that were delivering your road tax. So when you order your road tax today, you get it tomorrow, right? That's how efficient the delivery solutions are, the supply chain are for road tax. So they kind of took that resources and pivoted into now delivering other stuff, delivering food, because it's a food is a necessity today, right? And everyone talks about not having enough resources on the supply chain, the last mile especially. MyEG has that resources, so they just took this and just pivoted, right? So those are some of the examples we want to see when people use the ICC. Hopefully, they can get to a similar result to what StoreHub and MyEG are doing in terms of the innovation. And it's not expensive, right? To work on this innovation, you don't need a lot of resources. I mean, Wai Hong said he spent probably like 48 hours or less than a week doing this.
Yep.
And I know the guys at MyG also didn't spend that much time working on it. They saw the problem. They knew what the market wanted. They had the right resources to pivot very quickly.
Yeah, and it's so weird to actually think about it because like every time we used to think about business pivot or corporate innovation and all, it's like it's either months or years in terms of that. All of a sudden, everyone turned on a dime. It's so interesting to look at it.
But if you think of it, right, the corporate guys don't have this culture. But if you look at guys who are in the very early stage, because they're continuously iterating and pivoting, that kind of culture is embedded in the company already. But if you look at a company who's like, for example, an insurance company who's only knows process of selling insurance, they for them to kind of pivot will be very, very difficult. They may do incremental innovation, like they may offer new suite of services, new products, and so on, which are incremental innovation, which is fine.
Hmm.
But when it comes to a point like, so the COVID-19 situation really changed everyone's point of view, right? What you could sell previously are no longer valid, right?
Yeah.
But you need to do something to kind of survive. What do you do? That is a question you should ask, right? Yourself when you're looking at this situation. Otherwise, you end up like all the large corporate like Disney. I read an article. Disney basically stopped paying their I don't know how many hundred thousands of employees in their theme park, which is saving them like 500 million per month,
Mm.
right? There was an article that talked about this. Richard Branson openly issued an open letter to all their partners, customers, employees, and say, look, we are in trouble. We need assistance from the government, like a bailout. He's also willing to put up his island, his Caribbean island or somewhere as a collateral. So the businesses are all now struggling, but um, everyone is struggling, but you have to ask yourself this question, like for an organization like Disney or Virgin, is not paying your employees, is it a right thing? Whether it's ethical is a different thing. I mean, you at the end of the day, they are employed by you. You have a responsibility for them. So there could be better ways of maybe addressing this than just stop paying people, you know. But for a small organization like a startup, if you have, very little risk, sometimes I also tell people like they say, how do I survive COVID-19? I say you only got like you are a four-man team, and your solution cannot work this time. Start over again. It's not such a big deal, right? It's probably better to stop your pain now and restart over again and go through that, because now you have more knowledge, more skills, more experience to perhaps build something more suitable for the market.
Yeah, I think that's the you're really correct in terms of how people should look at it, especially in terms of smaller startup, because the question is like, what's the worst can happen? So
Correct, correct. So that culture is embedded into your startups, right? But it's not in the corporate. So the corporate one, the mentality is, oh, I got a ton of shareholder that I need to address to. And my responsibility is to build shareholder value, right? And I can't afford to pay all my staff, so I just won't. I mean, when I read it, I was really shocked because I mean, to me, growing up, Disney is like the brand that makes people happy.
yeah,
And then when you read about this, there's a bit of a disconnect between what's happening versus what your values are for the brand. So I think, I mean, Disney is probably got a lot of things that they have to do to kind of rebuild brand equity in the future after the pandemic. So I think, if we have a chance to work with Disney, we'll probably advise them to do other things rather than just not pay people. But yeah, but that's just my personal opinion.
you mentioned before we actually move on to that, because you mentioned something about being is it the right thing to do or being ethical. So one of the big stories out there, not exactly a startup, mega
Yeah.
huge company, Amazon, decided to cut affiliate fees to their affiliate that helped to build them up in terms of generating that, like what are your thoughts on that? But before we answer that, I'd just like to say hi to a couple of our people who are watching. Kariko say congratulations on the new role. Melissa
Hey, Kari.
Melissa Surin say hi. Psychic, hello big brothers. I think probably there's Jonathan Big Brother, D and J. And also Kari actually said, what's the worst could happen? The answer is ego.
I mean, yeah, I think Kari makes a good point. I think there are a lot of ego going around, but to me, I think a true leader is a leader that can swallow that and do what's right for the people. I mean, Simon Sinek talks about this a lot. Why I always quote all these guys is because these guys are my idols, right? I read their books, I buy their books, I read their books, I attend their webinars, and Simon Sinek, his book on leaders eat last. That book is actually a very good book on leadership, right? Because at the end of the day, that really tells you the difference between a leader and a boss. And a lot of times is there are a lot of things preventing a boss from being a good leader,
Yeah,
and ego is one of them, right? But there are a lot of other things that can prevent a boss from becoming a good leader. But a good leader is essence, you look after your people, right? Now I would question something like, Disney, like, are the people leading Disney the right leaders? They may be great bosses, great managers, and fantastic guys, right? But are they the type of leaders you want to see within your own organization?
definitely. In terms of that
Yeah.
is something that I think is a time where a lot of leaders or bosses basically would need to take a hard look at the mirror to figure out the type of person they want to emerge after this whole situation.
Yeah.
Uh, so one other thing that you mentioned a lot in our chat was actually how corporate innovation has evolved in Southeast Asia. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, so a lot of my case study is actually from Thailand, partly because Thailand Rise has a lot of corporate clients,
Mhm.
and what we've noticed is in the last 3 years or 4 years, the corporations in Thailand have been very hungry to catch up to the rest of the region. So they are investing a lot of time, money, and resources into being able to now, leapfrog certain things to be at par with more mature markets like Singapore, for example.
Mhm.
So banks, like for example, Siam Commercial Bank, they have a division called Digital Ventures.
Mhm.
And Digital Ventures is basically their innovation arm. They do innovation for the organization where they look at business model or disruptive things that could harm the business, then they strategize on how to protect it. But they are also a CVC. So the previous CEO of the CBC was a good friend of mine, Paul Polapak, and he's
Yeah.
a very experienced guy in the region. And he talks about finding, and he can invest in anything, basically anything, not necessarily technology that can add value to the parent company, but anything that makes financial and technology sense. So it could be highly disruptive. And when I see a company like that, and I look at banks around the region, not many banks are doing things like that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, there may be some leadership issue within all organizations, but at least this is the right step at the right direction, right? And then you look at Siam Cement Group SCG, which is a partner of ours, and also PTT Global, which is the Petronas equivalent of Thailand. Those guys are actually investing into deep tech because they know that is the next generation of solutions that will help their industry grow, right? And then Midpon is actually a sugar company
Yeah.
in Thailand, and when I spoke to them years ago, they told us that they've been actively working with the startup community for the last 5 years in order to bring the best practices from the startup community into their own organization, and they are also looking at diversifying out of sugarcane. I mean, sugarcane is the core, the best plants for producing sugar, but they also been researching into alternative sweeteners like
Stevia.
stevia and so on. So and for an organization like Mipon to do it, maybe it's a little bit more challenging. So what they do is they know that they have some limitations, so they want to work with biotech companies that can actually help them scale certain things quicker and more affordably. So those are some of the things that we've seen coming out of Thailand now. There are a lot of organizations within the region that also wants to emulate what they do, but again, it's a question of mindset. For
Mhm.
larger organization, you do need to put a little bit more resources because you want to move the needle, right? If you are doing the type of experimenting that a startup is doing and getting 5x, it's not going to move your needle if you are a company that's earning 1 billion, 5 billion ringgit, right? So in order to get those 50x, you need to do a lot more experimenting and double down every time, it goes through an iteration, you double down. And I don't see enough companies in Asia looking at this. I don't see enough large corporate investing time into this. And yeah, I mean there are a lot of case studies around the world that are already suggesting that if you want to do this, you want to get the great idea, you must spend a lot more time experimenting and innovating. Like for example, Nestle, which came up with this, and I drink this coffee every day, Nespresso. So
Espresso.
Nespresso is actually not a new company. Nespresso has been actually there for a long time,
Yeah.
and they actually go through a lot of experimenting to actually find Nespresso. And Nespresso is really the ones that set the tone for capsule coffees, right? And using capsule coffees. But since Nespresso, I've not seen any innovation coming up on it. So whether they're still testing or not, I'm not sure. But they do a lot of experimenting and testing to get to where they get Nespresso. Then after that, there's a long side. Like until now, I've not seen anything exciting coming out from there. So they may be still experimenting. So I'm not sure, but you need those kind of numbers to actually support to your company to get the 1 to 5 really good ideas and innovation.
I think the case study of Nespresso was highlighted with Professor Yves Pignol during when we brought him over, and in
Ah,
terms of, yeah, in terms of he mentioned that this is the regular price of coffee is this much, but the value created by Nespresso is a multiple times X in
correct,
revenue. Yeah.
correct.
So,
Yeah,
but it's actually still selling the same thing.
he's still selling the same thing, but yeah, I'm one of those guys who are paying like a ton of money for because it's so convenient, right? I think the thing is, you we Malaysia, the coffee drinking culture is not as mature as the Western market, right? If you go to US or even you go to Australia, you look at their coffee drinking culture versus us is completely different. But what we do like in Asia is convenience, right?
Mhm.
And I don't mind getting the convenience and paying for it if I can get a relatively good coffee
Mhm.
at home. And now, to be honest, with me staying at home more, I'm actually drinking more
Yes.
Nespresso. So, and the cost of producing the items are not expensive. It's for me, it's a capex cost. I buy the machine one time, and then the opex is I just continue buying coffee from them, the coffee cup capsule, and it's so convenient, right? And so easy to make a good cup of coffee. I used to use coffee machines that are slightly more complicated. I used to have a pot that I boil coffee in. All make fantastic coffee, but it's just not convenient, right? So I'm paying for that convenience. And kudos to the guys Nestle and Nespresso for actually doing this.
Yeah.
You know, it is a fantastic, and now until now, nobody has been able to disrupt their market.
There's been copycat. There have been companies that want to try it with tea. There's been company that came out with juice boxes with that. But yeah, that is really in terms of one of the more interesting thing of innovation, because it's not only a product innovation, but the business model has been innovated too. And in terms of that whole particular case study, one of the key highlight for me, because they occupied uh, a space that hasn't been occupied before, because you, on one hand, you have your home brew coffee, and then the other
Hmm.
hand you have cafe quality thing, and this
Yeah.
fits right there in terms of a niche that was actually previously unoccupied.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic thing you brought up, right? So a lot of companies that innovates, they have, it's not just the R&D on the solution itself, but they also innovate on the business model side. And to be honest, the business model for Nespresso is not, I wouldn't say it's exactly new. There have been guys who have been doing this for years, but in different industry. Like for example, so okay, maybe not exactly 100% the same. So what Nespresso does is they tie you in once you buy the machine,
Yeah,
you continuously buy the capsule, and that's where they actually make the biggest margin. It's from the capsule, it's not from the machine itself, but the machine ties you in. So if you look at it, um, you actually you've been growing your beard really nicely, Daniel. I must comment on that before I go
thank
into
you.
this. But if you are a user of Shake or you
Okay,
are a user of what's the other brand?
see that.
Gillette, yeah. It's the same thing, right? They sell you the stick for cheap, but you
Yeah,
buy the refills, and that's where they actually make the most money. It's actually from the refills that you buy when you actually buy it. So they design nicer handles for you, and you buy them. But actually, that's not where they are in the big bucks. The big bucks is the refill. So the business model in itself is not exactly new, but applying that to coffee is new, right? So coffee industry is new. And that's where I think they've been able to take the best practice, and leverage that to their advantage.
I mean, when we're describing it from the hindsight, sounds very simple, but actually, it's never that obvious in terms of innovating.
Correct, correct. They probably don't know that. They're probably like, oh, we found a new business model. So in hindsight, when we do comparison, also one of the things that we actually do at Rise is we go and learn different business model, and the business model canvas was really something that I talked about a lot. It's partly because if you Google business model canvas and you Google it with a company, there is an equivalent sort of like a guide of how the business model works for this particular company. And those are very important learning for any organization, whether you're small or big, right? You take this learning, once you have the knowledge, you can now apply it to either your solution or your industry or your company, right? So you don't necessarily need to develop something completely new, right?
Yeah.
Because if you do that, sometimes there is a risk. The risk is there's many things that are unknown and uncertain, but a tried and tested business model for industry could be applicable to your industry, even though it's not the same. So once you've done enough of this, and Alex also talked about this, when you've done enough of this, it's almost like you have amassed this knowledge. You are like an innovation surgeon and you can apply it very quickly. And then you can
Yeah.
run the experiment very quickly. So those are the things that I think corporate don't, because the corporates themselves don't have an innovation division that does this. So they spend a lot of time engaging with organizations like us, like Rise, and we go in and we actually help them do it. You know, and it becomes part of our service.
This is
Is,
something
is
that I
Dennis is Dennis in this show? Just
no,
shout
Dennis
out.
is not. Yeah, yeah, probably we'll have to get Dennis one of these days soon. But yeah, this is something that I mean, when I first read the book and I wanted to learn more, it's like trying to think in terms of how corporations start thinking about their business model, and it's always good to actually just to role play as if you're the
Yeah,
following corporation, and that gives quite good practice. I just brought
correct.
Dennis just to showcase because he did this for Apple.
Nice, nice. So you Google it. I mean, you can find business model canvas for Uber, for Starbucks, for so many different things, right? And that's important. If you have some free time, which we all have at the moment, it's just spend a bit of time just reading into this stuff, and you can do it yourself. I mean, if you are a startup, these are important knowledge that you guys need to have.
Yeah. If you want, because Startup Weekend is happening this coming, Global Startup Weekend is happening this coming weekend. Last Sunday, we have a recording of Howie from Forward School teaching business model canvas. So that is a good place to start learning on that. So I'll share the link again for our audience. Zishan asks, not asked, but he has a comment. The pandemic reveals true characters of our leaders. Some turning into wolf, some whole like go. I do agree. How about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I like I said, I am surprised. Every day I read the news, I get, information that still surprise me, which is surprising. But yeah, like I said, when Disney announced that kind of decision, I was really truly shocked, right?
Yeah,
And I would ask myself, if Walt Disney was still alive today, would he have done something similar? Because it goes entirely against his vision of what Disney should be, right? So,
maybe
um, you know,
Bob Iger, the just the most recent CEO. Although Bob
mm,
still remains on the board, but yeah, that is also a very interesting inflection to actually think about, like the change in CEO in Disney recently.
yeah, I think the new CEO is also a Bob. I can't remember his last name, but I do feel sorry for him. He stepped in at really the wrong time. But kudos to him though. I must give him some uh, positive feedback. He was one of the guys that spent a lot of time, although he was running the parks, if I'm not mistaken. But he spent a lot of time looking at some of their new products,
Yeah,
which includes all the now home streaming content and so on. And he said in an interview that his role as the new CEO, this is something that he really wants to go into, and those products are products that will survive this pandemic, right? Because it's home content, right? Now, and we all know Disney makes fantastic content, right? So I think they will do well in that side. On the Disney theme park side, unfortunately, that is the biggest problem. So how they approach it is maybe it was a board decision. I don't know, but so here's the thing that I've noticed, and this is not a plugin for me. So I sit on a board on a fintech company as well,
mm,
and we had our board meeting earlier just after the MCO was announced,
yeah,
and the board and the chairman collectively agreed that none of us was going to take any allowance, and the senior guys were also going to take a cut, and also a lot of where we could save, we would save, so long as we could continue paying the salary of the staff. Because if you were earning 4,000 or less, um it's important for you to continue earning that because you have bills to pay.
Yeah.
Guys who already earn the big bucks, and can survive. I mean, you don't need to take your trip 1 year. I don't think it will kill you, So those are the things. So I was very thankful that we had in this board where
Mm.
I was part of, we had the right leadership to be able to like, hey, this is something we need to do for the company. We are thinking for the company. We're not thinking for ourselves. And to be honest, on the board, there are people there who have actually retired. They don't actually have an income, but they are willing to say, hey, we are in this together. We'll not take any allowance at all for this year, right? So that we can continue, to help save cash flow for the company, so that the company can pay their staff. So those are some of the things that I think when I see it in action, it really leaves an impact on me. So that eventually, when I become a leader myself, I can use this, as a practice.
Yeah, that is very admirable in terms of how the board actually thinks about the stuff, and not many companies actually do that. Unfortunately, I know there are a lot Malaysian companies that are trying their best to keep their staff and trying their best to actually work. So it's challenging time, but definitely gonna be something that I do know some of the decision need to be made. So
Yeah.
it's not easy in terms of that.
If I may add also, like cost cutting, I fully understand, and I can't really, I understand, but I may not necessarily feel the pain because we don't know what they're going through.
Yeah,
But I'm not advocating that we don't do cost cutting. There are ways to do cost cutting. So again, there's a story that Simon talks about this company where they were struggling. So
yeah,
what the CEO said is, we do not want to fire anyone, right? But instead, what we'll do is we would implement mandatory leave where you can take any time, but you take it, you know, hopefully soon to reduce the cost.
mhm,
And it's basically unpaid leave. I can't remember which one was it, but the story actually allowed us to go and tell the company, like, when you want to do cost cutting, as a leader, you must communicate this with your staff.
yeah,
Don't hide it from them, and strategize and do it and then only announce. Tell it upfront that cost cutting is important. They need to do it, but do it collectively, right? So, for example, you know, what I noticed for myself anyway, working from home, I have become extremely efficient. A lot of times, things that I can do, if let's say you have to go to the office in a week, I can do in 2 to 3 days now,
yeah,
right? When as people become efficient, could you cut now from the work week instead of having 5 work week to 4 work week? They don't lose their job. They still get paid. They still cover their bills. But at least you're saving 1/5 of the cost of now paying up. That can stretch your cash flow a little bit more. So
yeah.
that's actually one of the examples that we do use in our innovation campus as well. I see
That,
Jason has another.
yeah, Jason has another thing. Would it be too late to innovate now as it takes time to test and fine tune? Say we divide innovation goals to short term, say 3 months, and longer term, say 3 years.
That's a fantastic question. It's always there's no such thing as a bad time to innovate. I think there's always a good time to innovate. But in terms of short term, you may have to shorten it, right? 3 months, who knows what will happen 3 months? Things are changing week to week basis. So if you want to do experimenting, I would say shorten that timeline. Fine tuning, yes and no. You can only fine tune if you know what's wrong with it. So I would say sometimes people wait until they have the ideal product before they launch it. A lot of times people just launch the MVP and then fine tune it once it's launched. There is some element of risk. I'm not saying there's none. The risk is it may not work, but if it works, then you fine tune it and you double down, like what I said.
Yeah.
But predominantly, most of the experiments you run may not work, right? So
Mhm.
60, 70% of it may not result in anything, right? And then the 30%, 40%, you double down, and that will continue to iterate and go on and so forth. So, so I would say 3 months is probably too long given the situation that we're under.
Yeah.
You may have to kind of do it week to week basis, and try to get something out. The ICC, for example, the content that we developed, we were fortunate because we were already in the industry. We know a lot of the practices out there. We got it out within a week. We read the case study. We put together the canvas. We tested with a handful of guys. Even now, I would say there are still elements of the canvas that we need to fine tune.
Yeah.
But at least we want to get it out there and it's free. Anyone can use it. And if it doesn't work, come back to us, give us the feedback, and then we can continue to fine tune it as well.
Yeah, that I will share the link over later in terms of that. One final question. I think you also want to talk about a bit of the accelerator, but like
Okay.
yeah, why does companies do innovation theater? I think Steve Bang was the one that coined the term in terms of innovation theater instead of doing actual innovation. Like, in your
Yeah.
opinion?
We don't like the term innovation theater. In fact, if there's clients that come to us to do innovation theater, we won't spend a lot of time with them. But there are other guys who can help them do the innovation theater. So, and I take this off our group CEO Kit. So Kit always says that we are here to deliver real tangible results to our clients.
Yeah.
And if we can't do that, then we are doing innovation theater, which is not something that we want to do. It's a very difficult thing because in this situation, I would ask myself, do I need to take on, these clients because I also need to have, because I handle P&L, I also need to have the cash flow. So I'm constantly asking myself that question. But that being said, if I take on a client and I can't give them results, then we are not really living up to our potential. So that's number one. Now, with regards to our accelerator,
Yeah.
our accelerator is a multi-corporate accelerator program. They come to us partly because it's not because that they can't do it themselves. They can and they have the resources, but they do not have the reach to the ecosystem. So we are playing that role. Apart from advising them on what are the right solutions to address the problem, we are bringing the solutions from the startups for them.
Okay.
So in our previous accelerator programs, we've been fairly successful. 50 to 70%, depending on which accelerator it is, would actually get a partnership with the corporates that are literally paying the bill for the accelerators. So those are tangible results that we take away. So when we run an accelerator, we do spend a lot of time with the corporates understanding the problem and then bringing this problem to the startup and say, hey, we have this problem. Do you think your solution can solve this? If not, can we work with you to, fine tune it so that it can address the problem? And because of us spending a lot of time doing this, and it's very time consuming,
Yeah. That-
we can actually get more successes. Yeah. I've not found a way to really automate this. If we can automate this, it will make my job a lot easier. But I still go out and I still sit down with clients. I still go to entrepreneurs and talk to them and say, look, basically the middleman trying to match this.
yeah.
But yeah, if we can automate it, it'd be fantastic. Like, so one of the things that when I talk about automating things is there are already similar platforms out there, right? The open innovation platform is one of them,
Hmm.
right? But you have to ask like how successful are some of these open innovation platforms because the results are not really published, right? Basically, open innovation platform is you are problem owner, you tell people you have this problem, and then these people who run the platform reach out to the community to get solutions. But a lot of time there's a mismatch, right? And what we are doing is we are actually getting rid of the mismatch by making sure that we handhold both sides to some extent. So the accelerator really does that. The accelerator allows us to, go out and say, we have this program. Throughout this program, we will handhold you to ensure that you can work with the corporate. I'm not teaching you how to build the solution. You should already know how to build the solution, or the solution is already there, right?
Yeah.
Now we want to see whether we can guide you so that you can work with the corporates. So that's part of our Accelerator.
And how can people actually sign up for that, or how to them get in touch with that?
Wow, that's a good question. You can go to our website,
Mhm.
gap.riseaccl.com, gap.riseexcel.com. Can I type it in here in the chat?
Uh, yeah, can. I'm also actually putting up a banner for it actually, so it's this one.
Sorry, I just realized that I typed it in the private chat. I'm going to go live now.
No worries. Yeah, I already have it. I already have it there. So for those people who want to sign up, you can go to jp.riseexcel.com. And Jonathan, really appreciate for coming on and sharing your insights on corporate innovation. Really appreciate.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this session as well. So, please let me know if there's anything you need help with. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am also happy to put my email. Actually, Daniel, if you could help me put up my email there, is jonathan@riseexcel.com. If you have
Okay.
any issues or questions about innovation or corporate innovation, please, drop me an email, and I'll hopefully I'll get back to you guys within 2 to 3 days.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan. And for those who want to get in touch with Jonathan, please feel free dropping an email, or if you want to learn about the corporate accelerator, head over to gap.riseexcel.com. In terms of what is still happening with Startup Weekend, we are still opening up registration. Startup Weekend is happening over this weekend, so it's a global Startup Weekend. Head to bit.ly, go Startup Weekend, MYGOSYMY. We have about like 200 plus signups already, so it'll be quite fun to look at it. Everything is conducted virtually.
Yeah,
Later today, we have Victor from Vin Capital, who will be talking about the investment in the travel tech industry. And tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., we have Melissa Tan, who is talking about how can companies still be eco during this whole MCO period where we are having takeovers and so much plastic, so much waste coming out. And on Saturday morning, 7 a.m. Malaysia time, unfortunately, because he's based in New York, we have Noel Kagan from AppSumo.
yeah. Well, can I just do a plugin for the startup weekend? So, just now you asked about the length of time to innovate. So, if you look at the global startup weekend, right, it's all done in a weekend. So, if you can do something in a weekend, 3 months is, I would say, a little bit long, right? So you want to kind of shorten it a little bit. You can do a lot even in a week. I mean, a lot of our design sprint is done in a week. So
Yeah.
we can actually do it. So go and, hang out with the startup weekend guys and see how they run it and facilitate it. And perhaps you can do something there as well.
54 hour to build a business. So yeah.
Yeah, correct, correct. All right,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Daniel.
Yeah.
Love talking to you guys again. If you guys want to reach out to me, you can reach me at Jonathan at riseexcel.com.
Yeah, Zishan, just wanted to wish thanks for sharing and for really appreciate in terms of your sharing, Jonathan. Really appreciate everyone for watching. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so much.
much. Yeah, see you all.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.